What's going on, everyone? So, welcome to my latest video. This is my review for the Neo-Noir film that came out in 2005 known as Sin City. So, Sin City is a film that 20 years later, yes, it's crazy to think, 20 years later, I decided to say to myself, you know what, review this film on your channel because there might be some people that haven't seen this film yet. So, it's one of the reasons why I decided to review this film for you guys. And also, it's a groundbreaking film, but the question is, has it aged well? 20 plus years later, has it aged well? And that's what we'll discuss in a little bit too. But for those of you that need to know the premise, I'll tell you guys. The premise is this. It's an exploration of the dark and miserable Basin City individuals that live there and their seedy lives that are going on and how they're intersected in some ways. This is a film that has a huge cast. Like, get a load of this. You have Mickey Rourke, Clive Owen, Bruce Willis, Jessica Alba, Devin Aoki, Rosie Dawson, Benicio del Toro, and many more. It's also a film that is directed by three individuals, Frank Miller, Robert Rodriguez, and a guest directing appearance by Quentin Tarantino. You'll know the segment when you've seen the film. Guarantee you that. But they also helped in terms of the writing, specifically Frank Miller and Robert Rodriguez. And Robert Rodriguez also edited this film, did the cinematography, and from what I understand, also helped with the score. So, again, this is his baby. This is one of those films that he had been wanting to do for quite a long time. And when this film came out, it was groundbreaking in regards to the fact that when they shot it, which, by the way, you can see how they shot it in the behind the scenes on the Blu-ray. It's pretty cool, honestly. They have it where the film is sped up by 800, and it's just the green screen effects. Like, there isn't any added VFX. There's nothing. It's just the green screens and the actors on the green screen sets. And it's honestly amazing the fact that this film was so heavy in regards to post-production and turned out really well. But again, it just goes to show how important it is for, the people that are making the film to be really passionate, because this type of technology and this type of technique is something that is, I have to say, the norm nowadays. Like, films like Wicked or Marvel movies, those are all movies that I would say have such an emphasis in regards to green screens and everything. It's, we're going to do it in post-production. But the thing is this, those films, in my opinion, all look very murky and just kind of ugly looking, versus this film looks very distinct. So the question is, why is it Sin City looks like $1 million 20 years later versus all these films that have just came out that are heavy on green screen and using the same type of techniques of Sin City don't age well? Like, why is that? And I'll say this. It goes like this. If you have it where someone's in the pilot seat, so to speak, or in this case, the director chair, and they are very passionate about, what they're doing, and they have it where they have camera work that is very vibrant, they have it where the camera angles that are chosen are very careful, very precise, and they have it where they know where exactly they're going to have the visual effects, where exactly the actors need to meet their marks and everything. If you have all that occur and such an emphasis on the cinematography being very colorful, lighting that matches not only the actors on set, but also in post-production, the two line up really well. If you have all that occur, then you will have a very vibrant film that can last the test of time. But unfortunately, nowadays, all these films have lighting that is very lackluster, just not interesting in the slightest, and colors that are washed out. And it's just very much so something where it's like, what are you doing? Like, if you're doing a superhero comic book film, those are films that should probably be very vibrant. And Sin City is definitely a film that is very vibrant. I mean, you look at the black and white cinematography and it looks so distinct with what it's doing with the shadows and the lighting, but also in particular the colors. There are certain splashes of primary colors that you see, specifically such as like red, whether it's blood or someone's like lipstick, or sometimes you'll see their eyes. It's just very interesting to see certain objects have, such an emphasis on them in certain scenes as opposed to other scenes where other objects have like an emphasis on a certain color. I just love it. I think it's very, very interesting, and I think that it really makes for an interesting, engaging experience, which at the end of the day, visually, it's very important because film is a visual art form. And this is definitely a film that utilizes that to its full capacity. Don't get me wrong, there is some narration to be had, and the narration, I would say, for the most part, is solid, but it's really the visuals that come to life and that stand up 20 years later. The visual effects are really, really good. The cinematography, the costume design, the makeup, the production design, these are all aspects that I think 20 plus years later have aged like a fine wine. And again, I do choose film over digital for the most part, but I will say that the digital HD cameras that they utilize, they are still pretty good, and I do think that they look good on Blu-ray. But again, it's just such a distinct film in terms of the visuals that I can't help but be enormed by it. And also, The characters are very fascinating. I will say that some are more interesting than others. The second act, towards the end, I will say I felt like it kind of lulled out a little bit in regards to the characters in that front. But for the most part, I do like the opening and ending scene tie-ins. I thought that those were really effective. I love the seedy characters. I do also love the fact that there is a morally great compass to this film. Like, it's not a black and white type moral compass of this film, which again contrasts nicely to the cinematography, which is black and white. But it's also the fact that these characters are just so hateable in some ways, but you can't help but be fascinating with what they're doing, and I really found it fascinating. I will say some of the characters are, two-dimensional, unfortunately, and as I mentioned, towards the end of the second act, it was a little bit slack in regards to the pacing, but for the most part, this is a film that 20 years later, it's aged really well. I will say the treatment of women, I've heard some people say that it's terrible and that, it's one of those things that it's not aged well. I will counter argue and say that I feel like that is kind of the point, and even 20 years ago, that was the point that the director was going for, that these are, women that are in peril, they're in danger, and in some ways they, turn to violence because they had violence extracted to them, and that they need to, utilize that as a way to defend themselves. But in other areas, seeing, violence extracted on women and other stuff, and also them being sexualized by the male gaze, I think it is fascinating because it's, again, not a film that's praising it. It's a film that's saying, like, hey, this is how some people have to survive. And I feel like Sin City, in a nutshell, that is what it is. You see not only just women, but male characters alike have to go through so much to survive. And in many ways, it's not something that is morally sound. In many ways, it's something that is morally condemned by many. And that's why it's also fascinating to see the church and the juxtaposition of that, because the scenes involved in the church, it's like, yikes. So again, it's a very fascinating film. It does warrant a interesting discussion in regards to the characters, specifically the men and women dynamics of this film. But again, I'm not sitting here and saying Robert Rodriguez is saying, like, yeah, this is how you should treat women. This is how women are. No, it's just saying that this is the world of the film. This is how all the individuals are. And again, there's not a morally sound compass. It's a morally great world. So I really like Sin City. It's not a perfect film for me, but it is one I greatly respect. And 20 years later, I really, really like. And that's why, for me, Sin City, I'll personally be giving a... Alright guys, that is my review for Sin City. Let me know, did you like it? Did you not? Did you like the nonlinear storytelling? Did you like the characters? Let me know your thoughts. Has the visual effects, the cinematography, the score, have all those aspects aged well for you? Or is this a film that you deem to be style over substance? I used to, back in the day, believe in that argument. I don't believe in that, honestly. I feel like a style of a film is something that's so important and honestly in many ways makes it stand out from the rest. So in many ways, the style is the substance. So I don't have that argument because, again, I think that this film, the style is what really elevates it and makes it feel very fresh. But anyways, what are your thoughts on Sin City? Did you like it? Did you not? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, I appreciate you guys for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Letterboxd, subscription, notification bell, Patreon, and I'll catch you guys later.